Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Good Relations Week event in partnership with Community Relations Council. My name is Charmaine Jones, and I'm the Good Relations Officer for Rural Community Network. Today, we are joined with people from the In This Together programme. It was a project that was initiated by Rural Community Network in April of this year, following the COVID-19 pandemic. And over the period of a few weeks, we were really impressed as an organisation at how quickly rural communities had rallied together and through their voluntary efforts supported those most in need in the rural communities. What you're going to hear today are their stories of what they undertook during the past, where they are now as organisations in the present, and where they think things are going now in the future, particularly when we look at a second wave or a second potential lockdown. It really is about celebrating our journey and embracing our future, which is the theme of Good Relations Week this week. We're going to have an interview from each of the participants and then an open discussion at the end about where they see things are going. So we have with us today Lisa Mooney, Emer Montague and Aidan Bunton, and they'll introduce themselves throughout their own interview. We're kindly joined with Paul Killen today from the Community Relations Council, who's going to chair the interviews and the discussion. And we thank the Community Relations Council for working very closely with Rural Community Network for this programme. It really has showcased the best of rural during very, very tough times. So Paul is going to interview each person individually, and they'll tell us about their project, and then also have a discussion at the end about what each individual organisation hope to do going forward. So thank you, Paul, and over to you.
Pleasure to be here and delighted to meet you all. I'm going to start very swiftly and move straight ahead. And Lisa Mooney, if I could ask you maybe to introduce yourself, who you work for, the sort of work you've been doing and the experiences you've been having during the COVID-19 pandemic.
I work for Building Communities Resource Centre in Ballymoney, and I'm one of the ethnic minority support workers there. During lockdown, we've obviously had to amend and change a lot of our work to suit online delivery. I think that everybody's been in the same boat. It's been a very rapidly changing climate, so to speak, and we've all had to really adapt and work very hard to change and to ensure that we can continue delivering that support. So with ourselves, we've got two branches really of ethnic minority support. We have a frontline outreach project, which includes a bilingual outreach worker and also a mental health worker together. So they have been delivering their services online and by phone, by appointments, and really just trying to continue to help people with the support that's required. And as you can imagine, sort of between April and July, it's been a very busy period for them during that lockdown time. So 270 issues were dealt with by Marjana, our ethnic minority support outreach worker, and those included really issues around benefits, employments, anxiety, COVID-related issues like government guidelines, really looking at social distancing, and unfortunately an increase in domestic violence. Also use of food banks and things to do with people losing jobs, unfortunately, and benefit searches. We've also had 67 cases that have been intervened by our mental health worker, and really around those similar issues, the impact on people's mental health in the rural areas of COVID and of those really difficult circumstances. Alongside that, we've been delivering our online programme work. So we've been able to deliver cultural awareness sessions. We really noticed that this was definitely needed in terms of myth busting and in terms of really giving people a chance to learn about others, learn about their cultural activities, learn about their heritage, learn about their history. And really we started with Chinese cultural awareness sessions because we had noted that our online there were increased instances of online hate, especially directed towards our Chinese community. So we did start with Bonnie Cooper from Chinese Connections and really ran out 6 weeks. That was our first online experience of Zoom. So it was a steep learning curve, but it went really well. And we followed that up with PLACE, Polish Language and Culture Explained, and with Globetrotters, which is our online learning now for young people. So kids aged 5 to 11 all came online, and we had two separate cohorts of this. We ran one actually down around Charmaine's neck of the woods in Cookstown and Dungannon, and we had one in Causeway Coast. So we had 20 kids on each of those cohorts, learning about cultural awareness, learning about different countries, about their customs, about, myth busting, asking questions, just developing that curiosity for kids. And we had a great time. So we've been able to, thankfully, adapt our programs and continue with delivery as normal as possible in the circumstances. And really, we found that people have really needed it as well.
I'm going to swiftly move on to Emer Montague. Now, if you want to give us a bit of an introduction to yourself, the organisation you're working for, and some of the work you've been doing during COVID.
I'm Emer Montague. I work for an organisation called Mid-Ulster Community and Arts Trust, which is shortened version is known as MUCAT. We manage a community hall centre in Carrickmore, which is in a rural area in Mid-Tyrone. In terms of this centre, it's based in an area which in terms of access to services is in the bottom 10% if you look at the multiple deprivation index for Northern Ireland. When lockdown happened, we immediately closed down the premises on the 12th of March and all activities immediately stopped, which included things like a monthly teenage disco that we did. We had the Mid-Ulster Drama Festival, which has been held here every year for the last 50 years. That was cancelled. Regular weekly meetings of preschool kids, senior citizens, exercise classes, traditional Irish dancing, music classes, a Special Olympics group that meets every Saturday. All of those events were immediately cancelled and have been still not happening. The only one then which we've started to reintroduce is the Irish dancing class, and we're slowly, in terms of recovery, we're slowly introducing other classes whereby we feel that there is we've done the risk assessments, and in terms of not having large groups and having a manageable activity, those are now slowly coming back into the Patrician Hall. In terms of the event that we ran, we did a project called Creative Carmen, because what we were conscious was that although the building is closed, there are still ways of ensuring that we interact with community members. So one of those events was the Creative Carmen, where by Facebook and other social media, we promoted the idea to across age groups, whereby predominantly young people should connect with their older family members or friends or community or people in the community via phone or other socially distant ways, and talk to them about what community and home meant for them, and in turn produce pieces of artwork or poetry which were then sent into the Patrician Hall and then displayed on our Facebook and other social media pages. So it was that bit about still getting young or people across different age groups to talk to other members of the community, and in turn having that bit about what home represented it. So we did that project, and then we've also started to do other projects whereby we're looking at stuff such as we did a treasure hunt in the area. So that was held over 4 days, and we got over 300 people who participated in it, and we got people to be aware of what's in their local community by putting pieces of history in that. And the next event that we're looking to run is a Carmen Camino, whereby over 7 weekends we will have guided walks in the area, again ensuring that they're socially distanced, but again trying to encourage people to slowly come back out and having events that they can come to which connect them back to their community. In terms of the larger activities that we did, which would have been the teenage disco or gala events for other community groups in the areas, such as the football, the camogie, the handballers, the Friendly Care Society, those events we can't have at this moment in time because of the rules and guidelines, and also it's something that we're believe that in literally until 2021 we will not be able to consider. So that has a big impact on us, because in terms of the running costs for this community centre, those events would normally cover the costs. So part of our activity, it's not just about how we ensure that we keep reaching out to our community members and offering the small events, but understanding the finances for this building and what we can do to ensure that we can maintain opening this building for the future.
Aidan, if you could introduce yourself and some of the work that you guys have been doing.
My name's Aidan Bunting. I'm the manager of Omagh Forum for Rural Associations, which is a rural support network covering Fermanagh and Omagh District Council area. And during lockdown, from the middle to end of March right through to June, we set about trying to contact all the groups we could, find out what they were doing or how things were going in their areas, particularly how they were supporting vulnerable or elderly people. And this was a huge task. We got in touch with community groups, GAA, soccer clubs, sporting organisations, orange halls, churches. And it was interesting to find out that all the organisations were offering support to their area were doing it to everyone, regardless of religion or cultural background. So that was a very interesting point that we found. When we got all this information, we gathered it together and sent it forward to Fermanagh and Omagh District Council so that they could put it on a central database that could be accessed by local people. We updated our social media sites on a regular basis to try and give useful information, particularly during, for example, Mental Health Week and the Volunteers Week, celebrating volunteering. Also, we decided that we would get the information out through designing and distributing postcards to over 40,000 households right across the district. So people could get all that information just dropped on their doors, on their doormat, and they were able to sort of register for food parcels, get information about how to stay safe, etc., etc. We also applied for funding for wellness packs so that they could be distributed to vulnerable people and families across the district. The packs would include puzzles, games, public health information, information around alcohol awareness and staying safe, etc. And we also, during that whole time, we liaised closely with the council, with DERA, Department for Communities, Public Health Agency, and the Community Development and Health Network, so that we could keep in touch, let them know what we were doing, and also find out whether we could assist them going forward. Then towards the end of June, we decided, as part of our network infrastructure right across Northern Ireland, to do a survey of what was happening on the ground with groups. So we interviewed over 100 groups in our local area. Were they currently active? What services they were providing? What information they were giving out to groups? We found they were connecting a lot through Zoom, WhatsApp, Messenger, phone calls, etc. But it also highlighted the importance of having a good broadband connection. If we discovered this morning in rural areas, it's key to try and keep people connected. They also wanted assistance. The main things were assistance with funding, providing ideas for activities during the pandemic, policy advice and management. They were also most concerned about the two groups in particular in the community, the elderly and young people, who they thought were suffering mostly during the lockdown. And they very much were concerned about how they were going to open up their centres again. That was a key thing, and we're offering information and support around that. And also the viability of centres going forward, because they haven't been able to fundraise. They feel that maybe are the centres going to be viable if this continues on, and they're just very concerned about that. So,
in your own local areas, have you found different community groups engaging with one another more normally in COVID to support one another, or has it been completely, everybody's just gone off and done their own thing?
There's been amazing collaboration, and I think that the community kind of sector have really stepped up and they've really worked well together. I've noticed that a lot of statutory bodies as well have connected in with community bodies and with community organisations to deliver work too. We've had really amazing coordination and collaboration within the community groups. So I think that really the community sector has been at the forefront of this and have really stepped in and stepped up. And I've seen fantastic collaboration even within the institutions in Northern Ireland heading out and helping to support their communities. Also the BAME organisations and groups have been out there. They've been helping out. They've been supporting their communities. So definitely in terms of BCRC projects as well, we've been linking in with our network of community organisation members to ensure that they had ideas, to ensure that they had wee packs and things to send out to community groups. So we did activity packs, for instance, and baking packs and knitting packs and all of these amazing activities that really ensured that people weren't feeling isolated, So the community groups were absolutely fantastic in taking these and running with them and distributing them out within the community. So definitely. It's really showcased how fantastically community groups can come together and work together.
Emer, do you experience something similar, or?
Absolutely, and I'd give the example in terms of the area that I'm in. A group started up called Determine COVID-19, and it was made up of people from the varying churches in the area. So it was across the religious across all religions. You also had doctors involved with it and sporting organisations and volunteers. And what they did was as soon as lockdown happened, they set up this group. And then there was leaflets given out with telephone numbers to ring. There were videos done from the local churches in the areas with regular updates. And what that did was it gave regular communication to everyone in this parish, as well as offering volunteer services in terms of shopping, in terms of if you had anything that went wrong in your house in terms of plumbing, electrical, then volunteers would come in and repair that during this time. So there was an awful lot of volunteers who stepped up in this area during that time and, deserve a lot of commendation for the collaboration and cooperation that they did.
Aidan, did you find similar experiences?
We found similar experiences across Fermanagh and Omagh. We were getting good stories back from local communities working together, trying to help those most vulnerable and those who were shielding particularly, so that they could get the support they needed. It shows the depth and quality of the community infrastructure right across Northern Ireland. It's been brilliant in terms of getting the information out there, getting help to people, and facing a pandemic. Nobody could ever have expected this was going to take place. If you thought somebody said to you 6 months ago, this is what's going to happen, you would never believe it. But I mean, it's fantastic how people have stepped up to the plate and got involved and been very supportive to their local communities.
What's next? I'm listening to the news every day, and I'm hearing about the increase in COVID numbers and stuff. Is the work that currently has been done enough to keep us going, or is there a new way forward, or do we think we have to start rethinking again how we deliver our services in the future?
I think what needs to happen is probably twofold. One, it's about understanding what you were doing historically and what bits of that you can still develop and continue to do going forward. And then the other bit is, what are the bits that you can't do, but the learnings that you take from during the time of lockdown that you can progress with? So for us, it's a case of, looking at, right, there's certain aspects that we can now progress with, like the smaller classes, like the fact that our Starbreakers Special Olympics team, they're looking to come back into the premises, and we can facilitate something like that. Or again, the chair exercise class, which deals with the more senior members of our community, we can, with taking all the shielding methods in place, offer that service as well. The big challenge for us as an organisation is all of those events would have been supported financially by the fact that we had larger events like the Teenage Disco, like the gala events, that would have helped to support and fund the hall overall. And we can no longer look to have those events for foreseeable future. So it's understanding from our perspective, what do we need to do as a committee organisation to then find other activities, other ways of, one, still delivering service, but two, how do we pay for being able to deliver that service and keeping this facility going? So that's the juggling bit at this moment in time, and some of the big questions. Now, we have been fortunate in relation to, we were successful from the National Lottery Award that was given out by the Department of Communities, but that will only help for a certain amount of time. So it's understanding what are some of the other ways that we can access finance to keep ourselves afloat and to continue the good work that we have historically been doing and we want to continue doing. But what are some of the things that we need to be able to draw on to be able to do that?
If we do go into a second lockdown, is there a change of practice, or do you feel that what you've been doing now can carry that on through, or how can that be moved forward?
I think we're just going to have to continue to adapt to the changing environment and to the situation as it unravels. I suppose none of us really know whether there's going to be a complete lockdown again or whether it's going to be, localized lockdowns. I think with the work that we've been doing, we're lucky that we have our funding secure for this year, so we can continue to deliver online. The only thing is that with all this collaboration and with all this delivery online, the fact that COVID and lockdown has also exposed really existing inequalities, there has to be work to really combat that and to look at that and to amplify voices of people that feel they've been marginalised during this time. So I think that there's a lot of work around looking at the mental health impact of lockdown, and also really looking at people that were on the front line, the key workers, looking at what their needs were, looking at how they felt supported, really looking at racial inequalities, and there's been quite a lot of discussion and protest around that as well during lockdown. So really identifying and listening to those voices moving forward and seeing how we can support our BME community if this continues, which as Charmaine was saying, it does look likely to in some way, shape or form, and really looking at how we reconnect and how we, I suppose, continue to connect via Zoom and what have you. But I think there's somewhat a wee bit of Zoom fatigue setting in, I think, as well. So it's about really having that mixture of being able to continue delivering online, projects, but also trying to get out there and connect human to human again, where possible and where safe. I know that for our part and for my programs, we have programs coming up around speaking truth to power and around, racism, institutional racism, prejudice, stereotype, and those kind of things that we're really going to be pushing out and really trying to connect with that grassroots work that's going on, and that real feeling that we have quite a lot of work to do to still catch up with the inequalities that we're experiencing and that have been kind of the spotlight has been shown again on them during COVID.
Aidan, where do we go from here? Where's the way forward for yourselves?
One of the things that I mentioned before was trying to help groups, if they feel it's safe and they want to do it, open up their centres again in a limited way and do it in a safe way. So we applied for some funding to be able to help them to do that. We don't know whether we'll get that or not, but that's something we feel is important. If groups feel they can offer a limited service to local people, then if we can support that, I think that's a good way of sort of keeping things going, particularly in thinking, get into the winter months now and, dark evenings, stuff like that. It would be good if people did have some wee things they could do to keep connected. We're starting a online good relations course with 10 groups called Sharing Spaces Programme. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes in terms of connecting with groups via Zoom and how they feel, how they're going to react to that or participate and get connection and that, because the whole idea of good relations was that people met in their various venues and talked to each other and saw each other. So it's going to be difficult to see how that's going to manifest itself using Zoom and using the technology, but at the same time we have to try it and see how it goes, and it could be something that maybe we learn a lot from, going forward. We're very keen to sort of try and open some online courses. We've applied for some funding for that too, like for example yoga and Tai Chi and various things like that. So if we can get that and it can be shown in halls that people can go along and see in a safe way, at least it's a way of reconnecting and getting people engaged again in the local community. We have to try loads of ways and loads of different ways to try and do that. So hopefully from now to Christmas, we'll learn a lot about how things are going, and we'll just keep plugging on. I suppose that's the best thing you can do.
I'm keenly aware, and I've heard this mentioned a number of times with groups around them trying to deliver what would be perceived as sort of core good relations work, the workshops, the discussion groups, the training sessions, and becoming more and more evident recently about pastoral care of communities, and that being a core good relations function.
I can give you an example, a really good example that I've seen of that in Causeway Coast area, where statutory bodies and community groups have come together to support new Syrian refugees families in the area. And there's been amazing support, because whenever lockdown happened, classes, English classes stopped. So the ESOL classes stopped because the college stopped, you know, and it was community groups and statutory agencies together that stepped in to kind of breach that gap, you know. So we have a collaboration at the moment to support the Syrian families, and it's with the Northern Health and Social Care Trust, Extern Bernardo's, Education Department, Housing Executive, but then also the community groups on the ground and volunteers on the ground that have actually stepped in and introduced Zoom really survival English classes. So we've kind of had a steep learning curve around that as well, in terms of how do we deliver, how do we allow these families really to have a chance at you know, becoming part of the community whenever they're immediately isolated as soon as they arrive, you know. So it was really keeping up and providing those kind of really basic English classes and really that support and that connection with people from the community that was very, very important. So in terms of pastoral care and in terms of, you know, recovery even, you know, there is a lot of work to be done, and I know that the feeling out there in the community is that people really want to help.
And I think what I was saying was we are really, the survey helped us connect with a load of groups to find out what their needs were. And I think that was very, very important, because it gave them a chance to sort of articulate what they thought and what they felt in their local community. So following on from that, we are definitely going to keep connecting with our groups in the local community and seeing how best we can support them going forward. And being aware that some groups, for example, the vulnerable elderly groups will not be able to meet really at all until they're talking about the new year to see how things go. And I mean, so they're going to be more isolated, particularly if they live on their own. And how can we support people in the local community to connect with them, work with, for example, that good morning, promote that good morning system whereby people get a phone call in the morning, stuff like that. Basic stuff that really needs to happen all the time, because the chances of them meeting again in the near future is very remote. So it's important to offer support and any help we can to those local community groups who are on the ground, and seeing what help we can give to make sure that everything continues to be as normal as possible during this really severe crisis that we're facing.
Clearly lots of stuff going on, lots of stuff to be done. And thank you again for everything. It's very much a pleasure to hear from the work you're doing at the moment.
Thank you for chairing the event today. We really do appreciate it. Shows you that this is there's 20 stories on the In This Together project on the Rural Community Network's website, and it just shows you the pure resilience of the volunteers and workers in every organisation. And Aidan summed it up really well when he said about the depth and quality of the rural infrastructure in Northern Ireland. It just shows nothing but pure resilience within rural during a pandemic. So on behalf of Rural Community Network, can I thank each and every one of you for all of your hard work, and continue to do it. I think as we move on into the winter time, it'll be a very challenging time, I think, when we get the darker nights ahead of us. And also thank you to the Community Relations Council for constantly focusing their efforts on the In This Together on their website, their Twitters and their Facebook pages. They've been fantastic to make sure that rural has been up front and centre when it comes to all the work in good relations and community development activity. So thank you very much. And if anybody else wants to see the stories, they can view them on our website and on the Rural Community Network Facebook page and Twitter.